Right, we'll just give it a few more minutes, maybe just let a few more people arrive. Okie dokie, should we get started? Enthusiastic nodding. Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here today and taking time out of your day. I'm Julie, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Caitlyn AI. Whether you already know about Caitlyn or this is your first experience, you're all extremely welcome. We've packed quite a bit into the next hour, so keen to get started. First up, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping, and the first of those housekeeping items is to introduce our presenters today. So we have Josh. So Josh is our head of growth and partnerships. We have Tim, who looks after Caitlyn as the product. We have Amu, who heads our client services, and we're really grateful to James Frankham, who is the publisher and director at New Zealand Geographic. Thanks, James, so much for taking time out of your day to come and show us exactly what you've been doing with your project Tahi, which is leveraging Caitlyn. So just a quick walkthrough of the agenda. Thank you, Josh. So first up, we're going to talk about brand and our customer growth. Then we'll look at smarter answers, richer responses. The very important part and one of the founding principles behind Caitlyn is trust and continuity. Some exciting things for you to look at around insights and analytics. Pretty dazzling what we can do with GraphRAG. If you haven't heard about that, Amu's going to give you a beautiful explanation around how that works. And then, of course, we're going to be showcased New Zealand Geographic's Tahi. Amu will then take you through the admin panel, and then at the end we are going to look at Caitlyn Agentic capabilities, which is some of the newer stuff that we've been working on. As we go along, if you have any questions, please pop them into the Q&A. Hopefully we'll have some time at the end to run through those. And in the unlikely event of a fire or earthquake, please make your way calmly to the red phone icon on the top right-hand screen so you may exit. Before I talk to you about Caitlyn, I just want to talk about the problem, because every organisation we work with has it in some version. Most of your valuable knowledge is locked up. It lives in your experts' heads, buried in documents, scattered across policies and systems, and the only way to get at it is to ask someone or go digging yourself. The numbers on this are really sobering, and many of you have probably heard these sort of stats already, but the average worker loses close to a day every week just searching for information. And while that's happening, your most experienced people, the ones who should be actually solving hard problems, are stuck on repetitive manual tasks that don't actually need the expertise at all. When generative and agentic AI arrived, it looked like it was going to be the answer to many problems. So a heap of organisations rushed in. And in fact, probably you'll find that the vast majority of organisations are now experimenting with it in some form or other. But there's actually only a small fraction of those that have actually managed to get it into real production. And that gap is actually really interesting. And it isn't because people aren't trying, it's because the moment you take AI seriously in a regulated or high-stakes setting, you start asking some very hard questions. What happens when your AI confidently makes something up? Can you see why it gave that answer? And are you able to kind of prove that later on? And where exactly is your data going when you use it? You know, those aren't really paranoid questions, they're the right ones. The top barriers that organisations report today are around data privacy, reliability, and hallucination. And when those questions go unanswered, the results follow. One widely reported study found that up to 95% of enterprise AI pilots were not delivering any measurable return. That's the problem we built Caitlyn to solve. So a little bit about us, because it does kind of frame everything that you'll see today. We're a New Zealand software company. We've spent years building custom software, decades in fact, and solving really hard data problems for businesses across all sorts of industries. That engineering pedigree is exactly why Caitlyn works the way it does. When we started building with AI, we didn't want to just bolt on a chatbot onto the website and call it a day. We built Caitlyn for organisations that cannot afford a black box that makes things up. Caitlyn is for places where answers have to be right and you have to be able to prove why. Every answer that Caitlyn gives is grounded in your own trusted sources and shows you exactly where it came from. Caitlyn runs inside your own environment, so your data stays yours. And it doesn't just answer questions, it carries out real work through controlled, auditable workflows. And these are connected to the systems that you're already working on. So that's consistent, controlled, and auditable, and that's the difference. And that's exactly who's using Caitlyn today. Research institutes, primary industry bodies, and a growing list of organisations who lean really heavily on Caitlyn every day. We're an AWS Advanced Tier partner, we're growing fast, and what you'll see today is a long way from where Caitlyn started. But enough from me. To show you how far Caitlyn has come and how our customers have grown with it, hand you over to Josh.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, everyone. My name's Josh. I'm the Head of Growth and Partnerships at Caitlyn AI. Thank you for joining our webinar today, and I'm super excited to kick things off with a bit about our story, how we got started, what we're doing to build a market and our profile, and also taking a look at our product and customer growth. It's almost been 2 years since we first launched Caitlyn, and it's been quite an action-packed ride. And I guess to get started, if we rewind the clock all the way back to 2024, which is about 100 years in the AI land, we first got started when we were working with a very pioneering first customer of ours, the foundation of Valuable Research. Now, after a few discussions with them about how AI could be leveraged within their organization, we came to realize that they had this really compelling problem statement. And that was they were sitting on 30 years worth of high value research that they invested a lot into. And they really wanted to get that into the hands of their growers to help drive better outcomes and practice change. And Foundation for Valuable Research is a levy-funded organisation, and they represent around, I think it's around 3,000 to 4,000 growers around New Zealand. And so essentially, what we did was we collaborated with them to build a solution which became AskFar AI, which was released in a public-facing setting as a tool on their website. And this is what kickstarted Caitlyn as a platform. And within weeks of launch, we saw a 50% engagement reported from the users with FAR publications, and a 90% increase in faster access to information. So all of a sudden, we had accurate, locally relevant information surfaced up into the hands of growers around the country. And this made quite an impact. This was around August in 2024, and before we knew it, there'd been some articles published on Stuff and various other media outlets. And we had a video case study done with Anna and ourselves, FAR, Custom D, Caitlyn, AWS, which was released. And I think all up it produced about 4.5 million organic impressions. So that took us by surprise, and there was quite a lot of interest and coverage. But while this was exciting for us, we realized that AskFar and Caitlyn was actually one of the first production-ready and public-facing generative AI solutions running in New Zealand on AWS at the time. And while creating a proof of concept with this technology was quite easy, taking that into production was a different story and was quite difficult, and that still remains true today. And back in 2024 and 2025, a lot of organizations were quite risk adverse to this technology, a lot of experimentation and a lot of uncertainty. But what we'd realized was that because we had started with a public-facing implementation first, we'd actually developed a market-leading approach to doing things like minimizing hallucinations and building trust into the AI. And we quickly realized this is what people were after. They wanted that trust, that accuracy, and that data sovereignty, which was highly valued. And also, as we looked around different market offerings, seeing what was available, it really validated our decision to launch Caitlyn as a product into the market. And so we set off on a bit of a journey, and of course, a big part of building a market is building profile. And so up on screen, you'll see a small selection of some of the events that we've attended over the last couple of years, whether it be speaking or exhibiting. And the really cool thing is that it's paid off. So we exhibited at the Evoke Ag conference earlier this year, and it was a nice surprise to see just how many people knew who we were, knew what Caitlyn was, and had heard of some of the benefits and outcomes that it was providing to our customers. And in particular, at the end of last year, it took us all the way to the world stage at the AWS reInvent conference in Las Vegas. So we were featured with our customer Kiwi Digital up on stage together, and we won a couple of awards in the process. So we won the Social Impact Partner of the Year Award and the Innovation Partner of the Year Award for APJ under AWS. And so looking at all of our learnings that we gathered from that time, it really helped us to identify where Caitlyn is strong. And that's within regulated industries where there's large amounts of proprietary knowledge, people that have organizations that have growth mindsets, and where there is little room for error. So basically where trust, accuracy, and sovereignty matters. And so while we started and kicked things off in New Zealand, we rapidly grew that and expanded across both Australia and New Zealand. And it's really exciting for us now that we have conversations underway in the US and the UK. So really, we're just getting started in terms of our growth potential. And just to touch on some of the numbers, I had a quick look, and over the past 6 months, Caitlyn has answered north of 30,000 meaningful questions to various audiences that are interacting with Caitlyn. We've ingested over 1 million documents in total. The total estimated addressable audience for all of our customers is now north of 80,000 people. And our estimates in terms of value and information unlocked, particularly with our science and research customers, is over $200 million. Now, before I hand off to Tim to get into some of the new features and what lies ahead, I thought it'd be worth just sort of recapping, what we launched with and what Caitlyn does today. So when we launched Caitlyn, we really designed it to work across enterprise-size knowledge. It's able to interpret text and graphics, tables and charts, understand how that content relates, the hierarchy in the documents, ingest all of that in, and allow you to query that through natural language and retain precision at scale. We really wanted to build an AI that you can trust, so trust is really at the core. And one of the main things that we've been doing is working with subject matter experts within our customers' organizations to bring their expertise into Caitlyn, so grounding responses in verified information with full traceability and verification of that source data, and of course, enabling ongoing improvements and refinements to the agents to give better and better results over time. And thirdly, and really importantly, your data is always in your control and it stays yours. So from day one, it was really important to us that our customers have full control over the residency and sovereignty of their data. Also that Caitlyn was compliant with modern security requirements. And we use services like Amazon Bedrock to ensure that the models run in escrow, which means we're not sending any information out to frontier model providers like Anthropic or OpenAI. And it also gives us the ability to essentially choose the latest and greatest models to give you the cutting edge AI capability. And of course, being able to customize and embed Caitlyn into your interface so that you can tailor it for your audiences. Before I hand off to Tim in a second, I just want to talk about, I guess, the progression of AI, and as we enter this agentic era, how we're starting to evolve Caitlyn as a platform to be so much more. So Caitlyn is now evolving to be an agentic platform which is built to scale the work of your best people. We're building for regulated, knowledge and process-heavy industries where data sovereignty matters and there's very little room for errors or misinformation. So what we're looking to do is build a capability within your organization using the same foundations and principles that we originally launched with. And with that, I will hand over to you, Tim, to take us through what's new.
Well, thanks, Josh. So we've been very busy over the past few years. And a lot of the features we haven't really sort of told some of you about. So I'm just going to run you through some of the stuff we've been working on. Some of it's ready to go, some of it's in beta, some of it is a little bit aspirational, but I thought it'd be a good opportunity to share with everybody what's been worked on. First of all, like having answer quality is sort of key to Caitlyn and being able to extract information accurately in order to be able to provide the best answers as we can is really important. So we've been doing a lot of work under the hood to make improvements there. One of the approaches we've taken is topic-based chunking. So this replaces traditional sort of naive chunking, I guess you can call it. So when documents are ingested into Caitlyn, into the knowledge base, we use a agentic process to extract areas of content based on topic. And this ensures that the data that comes back through our retrieval engine is accurate as possible. Also notice there's a lot of odds and sods and PDFs that come through to us. So what we've been doing a lot of work on is working on the engine to extract information out of figures, charts, tables, diagrams, even infographics can now be sort of processed and understood by Caitlyn so that data from those can be recovered as well. We can also configure custom metadata during document extraction. This enables us to layer on filters as well as relevancy searches. So we can answer more sort of nuanced questions like, what happened within this topic over the past week or month or year, or what has this particular person said about this particular thing. So we can couple relevancy search with traditional filters. At the moment, we have in-chat document uploads in beta. This enables us to attach a document to a Caitlyn query, so we can run that against the knowledge base. So this might be something like, say, you've got a field report that you want to ask a question of and have that context coming from the Caitlyn knowledge base. You can couple those together to get that much more deeper understanding of your documents. Memory is also in beta, rolled out with a few of our clients at the moment. This allows Caitlyn to remember user preferences, maybe with their interest, how they like to be talked to, where they're based in the country, and as well as their sort of past conversations, what they've talked about before. And this information is drawn on when Caitlyn provides further responses to ensure that those responses improve and become more personalized over time as the more people use Caitlyn. We've done more work to provide sort of richer, more engaging responses, one of which has been rich media in the answers themselves. So not just text, we can now surface images, video, audio from your knowledge base and have that sort of provided within the right context in an answer that comes back from Caitlyn. We had voice mode. Not everybody likes to read text, and previous up until now, I don't know who's played with it already. We've had the web speech API running, but we've just swapped it out with Amazon Polly, which is an AI voice system. So instead of sounding like
neither genetics nor management is more important.
It now sounds like
neither genetics nor management is more important.
And we can have those voices in a variety of accents, or we can even have like particular voices for particular languages. We also have multilingual support. So a question asked in a language, say, other than English, the question can be converted into English, so we can run searches against the English knowledge base, and then the answers can come back in the language it was asked on, which is great for speakers of other languages who can sort of interact with the knowledge base in their own language without you having to go to the trouble of translating source material. And of course, these are all a bit useless if people can't sort of trust it or have that continuity. So we've rolled out persistent chat. So everybody that uses Caitlyn, when they're authenticated, those chats will follow their accounts now. So you can draw on that on any device that you're logged into Caitlyn with. Data residency is New Zealand data residency is in development at the moment. This brings all New Zealand data into the New Zealand AWS region, which is really important for many of our clients, as James will talk to in a little bit. Insights and analytics. There's a lot of really valuable information that is occurring when people talk to Caitlyn, and this is a way of surfacing this up so you can see what your Caitlyn users are talking about, what they're interested in, what they're missing about. This is a mock-up of the analytics screen, which is we have a preliminary version rolling out at the moment. So this is an insights report that looks at, say, a month's worth of data, automatically creates topic clusters of what people are asking, what the sentiment is. It finds, questions that aren't being answered well so you can figure out where you need to work on your knowledge base. More material needs to be created or surfaced up from your archives, perhaps. We also are bringing analytics directly into the application, so you can see live activity from day to day. Next up, I'll hand over to my colleague Amu, who will tell us about GraphRAG.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, everyone. My name is Amu. I am the Head of Client Services at Caitlyn. And this is a short presentation of a proof of concept we did with BSI to showcase Caitlyn's GraphRAG capabilities. Okay, so BSI is an agricultural science research organisation with a massive body of specialised research. Caitlyn was deployed inside BSI's own AWS infrastructure. Their data stayed in their environment under their control. No external data was entering either, which for an organisation sitting on commercially sensitive research is non-negotiable. Access ran off their existing Microsoft Entra ID managed by their own IT team. And that sensitivity led to a development called gated content. So when scientists ask Caitlyn a question, Caitlyn answers using only the materials that the person is actually allowed to see. But Caitlyn also does a wider search across the whole knowledge base for relevant information, including materials that the user does not have access to. While not showing any of the content to the user, Caitlyn lists the resources underneath the response. The user may be able to gain access to it by contacting the BSI admin team. Now, this tells the scientist research has been done on this, but you can't yet see it. Without it, they may assume nothing exists and go to repeat work that's already been done. And this isn't just a BSI problem. We hear it again and again from research organizations. Duplication of research is a real problem. The response is laid out like this. The response at the top and the sources following, and at the bottom are the other resources, which are relevant to the user's query, but they don't have access to these materials. You'll notice that the citations at BSI's version actually look slightly different. For researchers and scientists, the author and the year tell you an enormous amount at glance, how current the work is and who's worked on it. So for BSI, they opted for the author date citation method inside Caitlyn. Now for the part that really sets BSI's proof of concept apart, they used Caitlyn's GraphRAG capabilities. During the proof of concept, the Caitlyn team worked closely with the team at Neo4j, who are industry leaders for graph knowledge bases. What sets vector-only RAG and GraphRAG apart is how the ingested material is structured and then retrieved by an AI agent. So most AI search systems today use a vector database. Vector embeddings transform unstructured data into vectors. So vectors are points in multidimensional space that capture semantic meanings. This allows you to compare information based on similarity of meaning and not just exact matches. When someone asks a question, the system turns that question into numerical representation, then looks for the closest match in the vector database. Relevant chunks are returned and a response is constructed. Now, this is an extremely successful model. However, general AI using vector search has fundamental limitations. Every chunk is treated independently. There are no understanding or relationships between the chunks. It can be context blind. It cannot understand your domain. And as the knowledge base grows from thousands to millions of documents, the system starts struggling to find right answers quickly and precisely. So now let's look at GraphRAG. To understand GraphRAG, let's talk about three main components in play. Firstly, it's the ontology. An ontology is an official blueprint or rules of the universe for your data. It defines the exact concepts, categories, and relationships that exist within a specific industry. For BSI, proof of concept, we use the NOLT ontology. So NOLT stands for National Agricultural Library Thesaurus, and it's produced by the USDA. We had extended it with New Zealand specific terminologies to help Caitlyn have a localized understanding of common agricultural concepts. Depending on your industry and your subject matter, we'll have to choose the best ontology for you or work with you to build on top of one. Next is Caitlyn's ingestion pipeline. This is Caitlyn's own IP. We have built a truly impressive 14-step ingestion method. The pipeline reads your unstructured data, extracts the important concepts and entities, and uses the ontology to structure that data perfectly. The last piece is Neo4j's graph database. This is where those connections actually live. Here we store data as nodes and edges. And that's just a very fancy way of saying things and how things are related. GraphRAG doesn't replace standard vector search. It builds right on top of it. It adds a new layer of structure and a way to search by how things are related. So you get the best of both worlds and the agent can decide which to use. For example, if you ask Caitlyn, how many days do I need to wait before harvesting? This is a direct and factual question, and the agent could use just the vector method to provide an answer for you. But if you ask, give me all the reports published by this author, when the question involves coverage, relationships, or completeness, the agent will opt to use graph to provide an answer. The graph follows explicit logical links rather than just word similarities, and the answers are entirely traceable and repeatable. And you can see exactly why something was returned to you. So what does that mean for us? So Caitlyn's primary focus over the last few years was to build trust with its users. How many of us have asked AI the same questions multiple times only to get different answers each time? Each answer looks convincing, but different. In vector-only RAG, when you ask a question, the chunk fetched each time could be different. All will be relevant, but not be the same each time. This is why you find each response might be different to the previous one. The responses are varied and probability-based, and because of this, we describe this as non-deterministic retrieval. In GraphRAG solutions, the graph follows explicit logical links. So each time you receive the same chunks back. While the response might be, slightly constructed differently, it's still constructed using the same information. Therefore, it's consistent, formula-driven, and GraphRAG gives you deterministic retrieval. When you ask Caitlyn a question, you'll normally witness the agent's thinking. You can see the question being broken down into search topics. But in GraphRAG implementation, you will be able to expand on these steps and see the path the agent takes on the graph to produce your response. GraphRAG also has a deep understanding of your domain language. Weed killer, Roundup, herbicides, these are all mapped onto the same concept. So nothing slips through the crack just because someone used a different word in their questions. So BSI had the opportunity to experience a vector-only Caitlyn in parallel with a GraphRAG version to see how they compare. And the proof of concept in a nutshell was Caitlyn deployed securely inside BSI's own environment. Sensitive content was gated, not hidden. Citations that were built for researchers, and the real differentiator being GraphRAG, giving them not just the answers, but a map of what they actually know. So the next part, I have the pleasure of introducing James, who is another client. James is the publisher and director of NZ Geographic. James is another one of our pioneering Caitlyn clients, and he's here to share what he's been building with us.
Kia ora koutou. I hope everybody can hear me okay. So along with RNZ, New Zealand Geographic has been working on a project called Tahi, which is an AI platform, I guess, that assembles data from numerous data sources, not just a single data source. I guess one of the factors for us is that with an organisation like RNZ and NZ Geo, when you have near enough to 1 million people looking at the results of an outcome, if you are wrong about something, you're never going to hear the end of it. So we had to be in a position where we could never be wrong, which led us towards a RAG-based solution. And also it allowed us full control over our data so that we could update data regularly. For instance, the RNZ data is updated every single hour. And that means that if a name changes in an article, it is represented within Tahi pretty much immediately. So we also have other launch partners being Internet New Zealand, the Ministry of Culture and Heritage, which publishes Te Ara and New Zealand Dictionary of Biography. AWS was generous with some support for direct developer funding. The National Library has come on board with 4 data sets, 2 of which are mind-blowingly large. And then, of course, Custom D and the Royal Society, which has contributed data from the Science Media Centre. So our trick really was to take all of those very distinct and disparate data sources and be able to put them all through the same pipeline, the same graph system to come up with a result. So, you want to flick over another slide for me, or whoever is driving this thing. So this is our context in New Zealand. It's different from other countries, and I think we need to acknowledge that. This is an Ipsos survey from 2025, and products and services using artificial intelligence make me nervous. New Zealand just about tops the list on that metric. We are distrusting, globally distrusting of artificial intelligence, only being led behind Ireland. And the next question they asked was, will increased use of artificial intelligence make disinformation better or worse? And New Zealanders, being obvious cynics, seem to think that by and large it would make it worse, like a lot worse. So when you combine those two things, New Zealanders are uniquely concerned and uniquely nervous about AI and what it can do. That really, in talking with RNZ around this problem, it comes down to a number of factors. There's a sense of a loss of agency. International LLMs are coming in with a snatch and grab approach called crawl and scrape, which sounds just as bad, scraping our data and then selling it back to us as a monthly subscription. And that gives New Zealand data owners and our institutions, and indeed New Zealanders, this funny feeling that this feels a little bit like a colonization. And when you look at the position of those countries on the graph, there's the most concerned and most nervous all have a history of colonization, which I think is not just coincidental. We feel vulnerable as a culture. Our knowledge culture is exposed. We've spent the last decade basically uploading our data to the open internet, and now that's become this massive liability. Disinformation is amplified by AI services. There's a commercial collapse among New Zealand media. Obviously, this is a RNZ and NZ Geo project, so we're particularly concerned about that. There's a lack of guidance from the government, and there's knock-on effects that are incredibly significant around social cohesion and ultimately the effect on democracy. So we had to understand what in fact were the values of a responsible AI in New Zealand, and we nailed down to these, that the data needed to be sovereign, needed to be built in New Zealand, hosted in New Zealand, governed in New Zealand, that we needed to have permission-based access to our data, being proper data licensing agreements with every single one of our sources. So we weren't just nicking it. It needed to be responsive to the local context. We needed equity of access, needed public good outcomes and returns to the data owners if possible. It had to be safe, both in terms of product safety, but also cultural safety. And it had to be able to respond to New Zealand law. So the data had to be available in New Zealand. Needed to be trusted, independent. I checked behind the foot, we didn't have $100 million. And so we couldn't build ourselves a foundational LLM. And so that made RAG really appealing, but it had to be model agnostic because we wanted to be able to switch to different foundational models at convenience. So this is essentially what we have for Tahi. we have this kind of Spotify model, if you like, where Spotify really changed the relationship between the record companies and consumers. And that's what we've tried to build for Tahi. So we're building for users, but fundamentally it's solving data sovereignty and content piracy for creators. And those creators might be NGO data sources or government or CRI. They might be private sources. It could be offline sources of data, which is really exciting use of RAG, and indeed iwi sources. So for those data sources and data owners, they are worried about content being scraped without consent, no revenue coming from AI use, bot traffic. About 45% of all internet traffic today is bot traffic, and audiences being disintermediated from their resources, and then data sovereignty. So Tahi solves this by having a licensed New Zealand corpus, and then on the other flip side of that, the users can have access to high quality data. So these are the data sources that Tahi currently represents, and we've got almost all of them in there. By go live, we should have them all in there. And they range between both sources that are ingested into the RAG database and also sources that will be retrieved live over MCP or API, which is new tech that Caitlyn is building for us to handle some of those very large data sources, or data sources with point data like the Met Service. No good having a weather report from 2021. This is what Tahi looks like. We've done a bit of work here with in-house design. So these are the two sort of dark mode and light mode on desktop and mobile. So it sort of feels a little bit Kiwi. And then beyond that, we also have integrations for WhatsApp and embeds into like the RNZ app. So it becomes a banner, and Tahi will answer your question within the context of a third-party website. This is largely unique, it seems, that unique sort of intersection of publisher and public broadcaster and government is unusual. The RAG solution is unusual at this scale and across all of these knowledge bases. The data is housed and queried and developed in New Zealand, and the first resource that meets the standards of New Zealand institutions laid down by the Chief Data Officer. And of course, being LLM agnostic is common for all Caitlyn resources, but particularly important for us. And that's all I have to say. But yeah, we'll move on and pass you back to Amu.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, James. James and a few of our clients have been using the Caitlyn admin panel, and so we've only rolled it out to a couple of our clients, but we're quite eager to roll this out to all of our clients in the very near future. We can give you access to your admin panel using your existing authentication provider, for example, Google or Microsoft. Some of the functionalities and settings I'm about to show you are still in beta, but we're eager to get this out very, very soon. So once you've logged in, for our Caitlyn customers, if you are logged in, you will be able to see a settings option right above your name, and clicking on it takes you to our admin panel. Clicking on documents, it will take you to your knowledge bases, where if you've got multiple knowledge base, you can see it here. You can click to create more knowledge base, or click in to manage a knowledge base. Here, it's simply just adding and managing folders or files by drag and dropping, and you can click to give access permission as well. So you can allow content access at a folder level, at a knowledge base level, all the way down to a single file level for which user sees what. Your agents sit here, where you're able to manage and edit them, and by clicking on Refine Answers, you should be able to tune your agents to get the responses that you want. Users allow you to invite and manage permissions of your users, and Tim spoke about this earlier. There is an insight report in there that you can see patterns and trends and what are your members doing with your data, as well as the analytics dashboard that is coming here as well. Documentations, this is Caitlyn's product documentations. You will be able to see our release notes and other material in here. We're quite eager to make sure that this admin panel is growing over this year and more of the functionality becomes available to our customers. Next up, I'd like to introduce Tim again, who's going to walk you through one of our most exciting additions, Caitlyn's Agentic workflows and capabilities. Tim, over to you.
Thanks, Amir. All right, so we want to sort of take Caitlyn to the next level. So, answering a question well is great, but, we sort of see running a process being the next step for Caitlyn. So I'll just take you through a little example here in the background, which is handling a windscreen damage claim for an insurance company. So what's happening here is we've got an agentic service running in the background. And it gets the job done, not just sort of answering the question. So, and it can handle, this is just an example, we can handle various different types of activity, and we can handle the whole routine. We can lodge a claim, read to a specialist, run a report, a nightly report, and we handle it the same way every time at a scale that no sort of single person doing this activity can do. And this allows us to scale your experts' know-how. We can capture it and we can scale it. Your content holds your knowledge, and your workflow holds how your best people actually use it. And then we can run it, scale it whenever it's needed. It's built. We're building authoring tools so it can be built by the people who own the process. So domain experts can author it themselves with an agentic service to help them. So it doesn't need to sit behind in an engineering team backlog waiting to be built. It's safe enough for regulated work. We've got lots of capability, so you can test workflows, so you can trust it. The guardrails are built into the service, and every run can be audited and explainable. We can incorporate humans only where it counts. We can run these workflows completely unattended or semi-attended and pull in a person when a sort of human judgment call is required. For example, we can have an email. It can detect when an email comes in. It can read the email, provide an answer. It can decide whether that answer should go straight back to the user direct, or maybe it needs to check something with a human reviewer. And everything it does gets logged, and we can sort of check back and see why it made the decisions it did. Like Caitlyn itself, it's your data running in your environment, and it's accountable to the people who govern it. So this stops, data sovereignty stops being a promise and becomes an operational process. Like Caitlyn herself, we're not tied to a single AI model. So this service, as we can plug in the different AI models that this runs on behind the scenes. So as they improve, the service will, get better, faster, and more capable. Right, just coming to the end. It's just finished lodging my claim. Any moment now, it'll be all done, and I can go about my business. Boom. And I'd just like to quickly give you a quick preview of where we're heading with this. We're working on building authoring tools to make it easy for the subject matter experts to sort of design these sort of decision trees that the agent can use, and put in the agentic and instructions throughout these sort of decision points to make it really easy for anybody to create their own workflows and have it sort of integrate with your existing tools and services. We've got a number of different connectors under the hood, so we can plug it directly into Teams, Slack, Jira, Teamwork, or any other sort of service that you use. Xero, make it super easy to integrate into your processor. Right, let's see to that. Back to Josh.
Oh, thanks, Tim. Well, that's about it. Thank you, everyone, for joining our very first Caitlyn webinar. We've covered a lot of ground, and I hope you found it interesting and useful. If you want to scan the QR code that's up on the screen right now, it'll take you to a form where you can basically leave your contact details, ask us any further questions you might like, and we can be in touch to follow up. The slides and recordings will be circulated shortly after this. Please do share it with others that've missed it. And for our existing customers, I do have an exciting announcement to make. With a lot of thought behind it, we've decided to launch what we're calling our Caitlyn Pioneer program. So this will be an opt-in program that gives you early access to beta features, things like the roadmap insights, and to participate in exclusive feedback sessions. If you'd like to learn more about that, then the form behind the QR code, you can tick the option to opt into that, and we can enroll you into that. The other announcement I'd quickly like to make is that we are running another webinar next Tuesday for our agri customers. So Gabe, our head of sales based in Australia, will be presenting with Sean, who's the CEO of FarmLink, one of our new Caitlyn customers. And the webinar will be around extension without the headcount, which is going to be pretty interesting stuff. So make sure to register for that. We'll send a link after this webinar as well. And for those that are new and would like to know more, we'd love to discuss how Caitlyn could work for you and show you a demo. So feel free to fill out that form and we'll get in touch with you. And with that, I think we have a bit of time left, so we can move to some Q&A if there are any questions, which Julie, you've been the designated person to run that.
Yes, I'm the question person. Yeah, I think everybody should join the Pioneer program. I think that it's a really exciting thing to be part of new initiatives and keep you feeling alive, as Tim likes to say.
Yeah.
So I do have a couple of questions. I'll start at the top, even though it's the last question that we received. I did need to phone a friend for this one. I'm not a GraphRAG specialist, but I did call in Sam, our CTO, to answer this for me. And the question is, can GraphRAG operate over data fetched live via MCP/API at query time? And Sam's answer is yes, the Graph agent can incorporate information from MCP both before and after it's inspecting the graph. The agent will use the data sources it's presented in order to best achieve the user's intent, whether that's simply answering a question or a workflow outcome, like lodging a claim. So, Callum, I hope that answers your question. Andrew asked, will this recording be sent out? Yes, I think as Josh mentioned, it will be sent out after this. And Caitlyn has asked, how would you compare Caitlyn versus LLM/Wiki or GBrain? Josh, do you want to take that one maybe? I did the hard GraphRAG one.
I don't actually know what those two services are, so I'm not quite sure how to answer that one.
Tim?
What were the two?
I also am unfamiliar with those services.
LLM-Wiki or GBrain?
We can look them up and we can provide an answer later, perhaps.